Hey class, take a seat and let's get started because this is very important. Today we're going to be talking about setting and description because they are basically the first impression of your writing. And we all know how important those first impressions can be. Hi, nice to meet you.
What are you doing?
Casting spells. Anyway, let's get to setting first. Setting is thus defined: the orientation of a narration. It is the when and where of a story. When you're writing, this is how you should think of your reader. Blind and deaf with no sense of where or when they are. They don't know anything about your story, and if they've decided to read it, it needs to be introduced to them properly. It's actually really simple. Just think of your scene and then think of what you want your reader to see, feel, hear, anything like that. Sometimes as writers, it's really easy to picture a scene so clearly in your mind that you end up leaving out things that are actually very essential. Like to you, a scene could take place in the daytime, but if you never mention it in your narrative, how is the reader supposed to know?
Of course it's not raining. What?
Is it? Let's move on to part 2 of this class just to keep this lesson pretty snappy. Description. Yes, that. Basically, description needs no definition. It is the tool with which we are able to create a setting. It is the cone to your literary ice cream. First, I want to do a little pretest thing. I'm going to give you a few short descriptions, and I want you to think to yourself which ones are good and which ones are bad. Sound simple enough? Please note that I did say think to yourself and not put in the comments, I don't want this video to be ruined for any classmates that might come in a little later. Example A. His eyebrows were the same gray as a pigeon's wing. Example B. Her hair was ash blonde. Example C. The trees were tall. And example D, the sky was sea blue. So take a second, think about it. You can pause the video if you need some extra time. It's a pretty quick pretest, just good, bad, successful, inadequate, just in your head. We good? To me, the only correct good, full, adequate, what have you description would be description A, and I'll tell you why. First, I'm going to dispel the other 3 answers really fast for you right now. So example B, her hair was ash blonde. Let's kind of dissect that just a little bit. Basically, it's poetic but completely imageless. Have you ever actually met someone and looked at their hair and would have just in your mind immediately described it as ash blonde? Like, what does that even look like? Descriptions like these sound nice, but they're really hard to picture, and it could possibly jar the reader out of the writing, especially if they're taking the time to try and picture what you're describing. A really good example of how this description could be remedied or fixed or even coined would be in The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. Is that the right? Oh, that was right off the top of my head. Anyway, throughout the entire novel, there is a character who is referred to as the corn-haired boy, or corn-yellow hair, whichever. Either way, you know what that looks like, because that is pretty specific. Okay, example C, the trees were tall. I know this seems like a really innocuous description and that it should be right, and there's nothing wrong with saying trees are tall if they're tall, right? Well, yes, but the fact that you're saying trees are tall is a very personalized description, because what might be tall to a 6-year-old will definitely not be tall to a professional basketball player. A really fast way to fix this would be saying they were the tallest trees she'd ever seen. And example D, the sky was sea blue. Stay with me on this one. This kind of encompasses everything of the last couple of examples, and I'll tell you why. First off, there is more than one sea, and there are more than one different shade of seas because of there being more than one of them. And not only will it jar them out of it in that sense, but looking at it as comparing nature to nature. One, it's boring. And two, it's contradictory. It makes the reader try to displace the sea onto the sky, and it might just, take them out of your writing a little bit. And the main objective, especially with description, is to make it sound like it flows very naturally. After dispelling those three, it basically leaves example A, which is his eyebrows were the same gray as a pigeon's wing. Of course, there are many different ways you could take this, but I think it pretty much settles for itself. The pigeons in general are in the same gray scale. They are a very easy object to go straight to. Almost everyone on the planet has seen a pigeon, so it's not like they're going to be like, I don't know what that means, or anything like that. It should be very easy, it's very accessible, and it flows rather simply in the mind. So basically, we are in lesson 1 of this whole setting and description and scene building before we get to characters or anything like that, or plot or something complicated. So I'm working on it. Did you guys enjoy this lesson? I would love comments, feedback, because I don't know what I'm doing, basically. I'm just telling you what I've noticed as being a reader, a very avid reader, and I know you guys are too. Tell me if you've seen these crappy descriptions elsewhere, or if you've ever, just realized that they were talking about a scene at nighttime about, halfway through the chapter, because I have. I'm not going to name books right now. I'm not going to name books right now, but I could. So basically, you guys, I don't want to see any descriptions from you saying that the leaves were grass green. So after setting and description, another really integral part of scene building is mood. It helps build a greater sense of the scene, because there's only so far you can take a reader with sight, hearing, taste, and touch, and things like that. You actually need to make them feel something. There is a strong emotional connection to reading. So if it's a tense scene, you want to make them feel tense. If it's a really relaxed scene, then you want to make it sound flowy and luau-y. So we'll talk about that next lesson. If you guys want to see a next lesson, I'm serious, you guys. Comment or leave me a message or whatever. Also, I am really open to reading your examples. If you want to send me a short story in my inbox, I am always happy to read them. I'll only criticize if you ask me to. I'm always happy to read other things that the people who watch me have written, because I think that's awesome. So it's happened before. People have sent me their stuff and asked me for advice, and I mean, it's only if you want my advice, mind you. I feel like I'm tripping over my words right now. I think I'm more famous than I am. Okay, I'm leaving now, so I hope you guys liked this lesson, and I will see you all very soon.